Just a moment. And now I want to have some calm and interesting conversation with you and your listeners.
Yes, I think the conversation is going to be very interesting, very warm, and it's something that is very important to the both of us that we're going to discuss today. So do me a favor, Olena, please introduce yourself, tell my audience a little bit about who you are and of course where they can
Mhm.
find you.
My name is Olena, and I live in Kiev, in Ukraine, and work at the Voices of Children Charity Foundation, one of the biggest foundation in Ukraine that provides assistance to children. Our mission is that no child should be left alone with the experience of war. I have two children. It is most interesting information about me. I have two children, Christina, my daughter, who is 18 years old. Yes, 18 years old. And my son, Enrico, who is 5 years old, and he has an autism. When my son was 2 years, he was diagnosed with autism. And to be honest, it was a shock for me. Um, Yes, maybe from the time he was approximately 1 years old, I noticed some red flags indicating about autism, but I kept reassuring myself that it was still little and that every child develops at their own pace. However, when he turned two, we visited a psychiatrist and received the diagnosis. Um, it was such a difficult period of acceptance for me, approximately maybe 4 months. What's thinking about it, I tried to understand what was the hardest thing for me in this acceptance and what is usually the hardest part for other parents, especially in this early stage of acceptance. I think that it's probably the realization that your life, your motherhood, your expectations maybe for your child will not be as you imagined before. And that hurts. And I felt that I was grieving, to be honest. During that time, I worked with a psychologist and allowed myself to experience all these emotions. But over time, um, as I accepted my son's diagnosis and all challenges that autism brings in my life, I suddenly realized that I wanted to turn this personal experience into some fuel for making change in society. And that's how I started working in the Voices of Children Charity Foundation, coordinating projects for children with autism and their families. And I started to do supported groups for moms called Motherhood with Letter A and podcast Letter A about autism. And now I think that it is the main my identity, maybe. Uh, this educational work for children with autism, for society, for families. But I have other identities because I'm a journalist, I'm a professional journalist, and I'm a writer. I have my first novel, and I have different identities. I'm mom, I'm wife, I'm woman, I'm Ukrainian. But I think that this educational work with autism, with uh, support of families, is the main my identity. It's maybe a short biography of me.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that because I agree that the childhood of any child should be something of joy, something of happiness. It should be something to be remembered. And I know that so many people experience bad childhoods or childhoods that maybe are traumatic in a sense that it prevents them from having healthy relationships as they're an adult. Right. So, like, when you decided to do this, what was the reason why you got started making sure that children have a good upbringing?
You know, as a mom, as a social activist, as a journalist, maybe as well, uh, I try to use each experience in my life and to do something with it, not just for myself, but for other people as well, especially for children. And it was so important for me to use these uh, big challenges in my life, but use it for other people as well.
When I look at my own childhood, I know that there's so many resources available now, but sometimes we don't realize that maybe there wasn't that many resources, let's say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And I wonder how many children have suffered because they weren't aware that there's people out there like you, like maybe me, that could help them. When you see children who are suffering and maybe they're not able to get the help that they so desperately need, how does that make you feel to see that happening?
Um, Thank you for these questions. You know, I think that childhood must be colorful uh, in the life of each child. Doesn't depend. You have some diagnosis. You live in the war. Uh, you have some illness. I don't know. Doesn't depend. Your childhood must be colorful. And as an adult, um, I want to do um, a lot of different acts, projects, etc. Uh, for this colorful childhood of our children, especially in Ukraine, especially now. I can do it. I have, I don't know, skills. I have wishes. I want to do it to help them to do their childhood is colorful.
I wonder if we would ever get to a point where every child grows up with the biggest of smiles on their
Yeah.
faces, right? Filled with happiness. Like I know I'm here in Canada, you're there in Ukraine, and it appears that there's like a difference between maybe what is happening in Ukraine versus what's happening in Canada. Is there, does that impact what you can do when it comes to helping these children who have special needs and who need special attention more so than the average child that doesn't have these concerns?
Um, you know, sometimes I think very often I think in my job every day in my work I think about the parents because happiness of children depends on happiness of their parents. Happiness of their parents depends on they I mean parents emotional stable. Yes, about depends on the emotions, about the psychological stable. And as a mother of a child with autism, a child with special needs, and an expert in this field, I know a lot of challenges of parents who have children with special needs. The first is some chronic stress and burnout, because your child with special needs often requires extensive support from adults. As a result, lack of personal time and emotional exhausting. It's some maybe social isolation, especially speaking of societies with a low level of acceptance of neurodiversity. Unfortunately, in Ukraine, with its post-Soviet legacy, is still such a country. Financial pressure because high cost of therapy, specialized education, and medical support. And maybe the most difficult things for me as a mom and for other parents is a fear of your future. because you can't plan anything, because autism provides no guarantees and clear scenarios of your future. You just can walk your way with your child, yes, and this lack of knowledge about your future can be very frustrating, and especially different thoughts about your life and your child without autism. Yeah, because sometimes you can think how you would have funny conversation with your child, how you would play with him or with her, who your sons or your daughters' friends would be, etc. It's very painful thoughts, and I want to help these parents, these adults, these moms and dads to cope with these painful thoughts as well. I want to create, and we create with Charity Foundation different content, support content to them. I want to help them because I understand that if I help these parents in different ways, I help their children. And for me, it's very strong connection between help to parents and help